which are quite higher or clearly higher than tariff restrictions, value reductions or elimination may bring much more significant benefits on reducing the custom duties. So this is the first field we explored. Then we checked the similarity of export structures, and this meant that in the case if the structures are different, it could increase the trade, especially inter-industry trade. And yeah, we calculated the indexes of revealed comparative advantage by Balassa, and we drew some conclusions. I don't know if we have enough time to be more detailed about that, but we calculated it for different groups of products. So in general, in certain group of products, there is a room for trade development, and in another, it is not, because sometimes the countries in Europe and Asia are competitors, and it is not obvious that this trade could develop. So we present, I think, in detailed way the results of that part in the draft. So you could read, and you can read it again if you want to. And the final part was devoted to degree of integration within the global value chain, which is also quite interesting area of the article. So we estimated the foreign value aid shares in gross exports, and it was again because of the data possibility. It was done from the point of view of European value add in gross export of Asian countries. So the conclusions from that part are as follows. Like the highest share of EU foreign value add in total foreign value add is seen in only certain countries, like Singapore has the highest share, but then China, Japan, and South Korea. So these are, of course, more developed countries. So this is the first one. The second, we could observe some changes in engagement. Somehow we can describe it like that. So after the first period and rapid growth of production links from the mid of 90s up to almost up to global financial crisis, actually, this upward trend was reversed, and then it increased after 2010 again, with some exceptions. And the last conclusion from that part connected to global value chain is that the share of components from European countries is in gross export of Asian countries is quite diversified. The highest share of intermediate goods from European Union in exports of only certain Asian countries is significant. It is again Singapore on the first place, and then we have also Malaysia and South Korea. I think you can look at the numbers in table 5 that describes or that gathers all data available and calculated here. So as general conclusions, these are still under construction, let's say, still open, and we would welcome your comments and advice, of course. We could observe that we had a change in approach in EU policy from this general strategy towards the entire region to more individual, more elastic treatment of individual countries. And we can observe it in the bilateral negotiations also. And of course, we could Union in these broader strategies allowed to do so. So by this negotiation of agreements with some individual countries, EU is strengthening the regulatory environment, as I mentioned before. So this influences the access to Asian and European markets, as it is the aim of the connectivity strategy. So these activities should be assessed positively from the point of view of this strengthening connectivity between partners. However, as also said, it is quite complicated if we take into account investment part. So additional efforts are needed in that area. And yes, for general conclusion in the second analytical part, we can say that there is some potential of increase of trade between an investment still in between partners, and after analyzing these areas that could prove our hypothesis is that the most important thing is non-tariff barriers, because the tariffs are quite low at the moment, and maybe in the case of some selected and not too many Asian countries, these tariffs are important. So as a result, non-tariff barriers are more significant in that area. Although it can be also put here that there are some controversies between European countries, and if Europe will allow the entry of Asian countries, especially in the area of labor-intensive goods, that could cause the anxiety of Central and Eastern European countries, for example. So it could make some kind of tensions inside, and it could disturb a bit the process of liberalization. So this is one of the thoughts we had. Yeah. So in the case of capital products, the situation is a little bit different because these products are quite diversified, and they are technologically advanced or more advanced. So the facilitation of foreign direct investment may have greater impact on this exchange development. So in that case, in the case of these capital goods, the most significant benefits from cooperation could be achieved by Germany, France, United Kingdom. Yes, the United Kingdom still, because we gathered the data where the UK was in the EU, but also for Central and Eastern European countries, as well in Asia, Japan, China, and Korea.
Thank you.
So I think I stop here. Thank you.
I think it's almost done, right?
Yes,
Thanks,
exactly. Yes,
yeah. Mireia and Paul, Thomas, thank you very much for your presentations. So let's have Q&A session, discussion. Somebody, any comments or questions? Professor Lee?
Yeah, I have a quick question to Mireia. You have well summarized the digital connectivity, but sometimes I myself got confused with the agenda of digital connectivity and cyber security and those kind of cyber the agenda. So how are you kind of putting these issues together, or in a sense the separate? So what's your kind of the definition of scope of digital connectivity?
Very good question. I didn't have the time, but I'm using also the definition of the terminal conceptualization that O'Connor uses, and therefore cybersecurity is one of the 3 elements identified in this. So you have, first of all, you have infrastructure. Infrastructure involves several issues, including the security element, right? And the security element is the cybersecurity element. And so the conceptualization involves infrastructure, and then emerging technologies, and then regulation, right? And within these 3 main elements, you have subcategories. So cybersecurity will be a subcategory within the big box, right? So yeah, that's the conceptualization that I'm using. Since it cannot be this, let's say the security element should not be pulled off of the rest of the digital main categories or subcategories. So the security element, it doesn't only cover cyber security per se.
So any other comments?
I have a questions.
Dr. Yoon, yes?
In terms of foreign value added, and I agree your main points, but you didn't mention anything about the methodology and the definition of foreign value added. Usually the foreign value added in experts is decomposed into several parts, such as double counted terms, transaction cost, foreign value added, domestic value added. So simple questions: how do you calculate, and what is your methodology? External viewers may ask the same questions because you didn't mention it. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I understood well because of your mask, but it was not very good. But, yes, as for foreign value add, it is calculated as a value of EU components and parts imported by Asian countries, and the share of this value in gross export of Asian countries. And it is widely or it is accessible in the database of OECD and WTO. So it's quite easy to get the data. And of course, we could also use some additional indicators to show that, because of course we had to select certain indexes for that, and this was the simplest to get actually, and of course it is not it is not a model, okay, so it's not econometric model, so we don't use very complicated data, and we don't estimate by ourselves. And if I understood well, you also asked about the non-target barriers, right? Like methodology. So again, it is also based on the Untitled Trains database, which collects the data for only certain countries. As said, in the case of EU non-tariff barriers towards Asian countries, we could have only 13 countries, and it is calculated according to the model, GTAP model that was invented, or not that was invented, but it was based on the let me check the name of key in theta, and it is like again estimates are based on the cross-section gravity model, where these dummy variables capture the proportionate quantity imported due to the presence of non-tariff barriers, and this change is then converted into the average by using the elasticity of trade with respect to the first 1 percentage point increase in tariff. So it is recalculated, right? So it's quite easy to get the data. So you can go to this Untitled Trains database and just put the names of the countries, but then you have to calculate it for the countries and for different group of products. So we aggregated actually the groups of products, and you can look at the table in Annex 1, and it is our work actually to compile and to gather and to aggregate the data for the countries that were available. So only 13 countries could be put here, and maybe the complementary point should be done because it is made from the point of view of EU only, and we could think about why not from the opposite side, because of lack of data. And I think it's in general this article has such a feeling and it's biased towards EU more than from Asia. So we would like also to have your opinion about that, because at first we are trying to think from like a general point of view from both sides, right? And after the writing, after presenting, we and probably you have an impression that it is biased toward the EU side. So this is because of availability of data in general. So
Powell,
mm-hmm.
I have a few more comments on your paper. Number one is if you take a look at the table 4, you said that you have a little bit aggregated the products, right? To have the SITC level, SITC 0 to 9, 8 to you have.
Yes.
But if you have this much aggregated data, then you might have not so much many implications to be drawn from that, because it's too much aggregated, and you have many countries having showing the revealed comparative advantage here. So that my concern is probably it's a little bit too much aggregated. You could go to 2-digit probably. It looks better, and you might have better kind of division of labor between Asian and European countries. Think about it, and if you have some opinion about that, please tell me. Number 2 comment is about table 5, foreign value added. It's very good and very interesting to see. But I was missing some discussion, qualified discussion about why these changes and what led to different changes in different countries. Why the Singapore, Korea showed increasing trends and other countries decreasing, things like that. So kind of more kind of qualified discussion about the results I was missing. And my question is lastly about the next table. For this kind of table to be impactful, probably or hopefully the numbers are showing the tariff equivalent. If it's tariff equivalent, then we can imagine the magnitude of the protectionism exerted by the TBTs. If the numbers are only the frequency or the import coverage, things like that, then probably they don't they don't tell much about the trade structure. So what does these numbers show? That is my question to you.
Thank you, Professor Park. Okay, so firstly, well, probably we agree with your first comment because yes, it's perhaps more general table as for the groups classification. Okay, so probably we go in that direction, but we disaggregate them and we try to show the most important products in our bilateral trade, and then we can indicate the countries that specialize more in or have an advantage in exportation of certain group of products. So thank you for that comment, and we'll modify it for sure. As for the second one, yeah, we'll also develop the discussion part, and probably the changes are connected to the particular sectors that were developing, or the trade was developing, or production networks were developing in. So, for example, electronic sector is one of the most important now, and the networks, production networks between Europe and Asia are quite developed in that sense, and this is probably why the countries, certain countries, were still involved or even developing this engagement, let's say, and the others not. And the question, this table shows like equivalent of non-tariff barriers calculated as a tariff. Okay, so
tariff equivalent.
Yeah, tariff equivalent.
Tariff equivalent activity. Yeah. That's quite good. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So it is quite simple to assess, right? The level of barrier.
I got it. No.
So yeah, but maybe we should put it more clearly so that it should be readable easily.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
One short one to Mireia. I think this aspect of standards, right? Standards and practices, rules-based dimension of digital connectivity. That is something that resonates well with all other papers as well. So to have maybe you could put emphasis on this and maybe discuss in how far, because your claim is that the Brussels has a strong determination to push the EU as a leader, right? A global in digital, digital. What is it? Digital technology? Is that what you said? Yeah, but there are practical obstacles. So if you could show these practical obstacles, some cases with regard to Asia, right? Possibly China, that would provide a strong argument. So maybe instead of focusing on all these elements that you named, right? 5G, cybersecurity, space, and
no, that's the conceptualization. That's what I'm focusing.
Yeah. You could apply that conceptualization, and at the same time narrow it down and focus on a case, for instance, EU-China or EU-Japan, right? Since we already have the connectivity framework here between EU and China, EU and Japan.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So sorry, I didn't have time in the presentation, but it's done actually. So when in the analysis part, and that's why the recommendations come from the analysis, that it has not been presented. So I go through the three partners, right? And then I focus in three main three main areas, sub-areas, right? And those are linked in 5G, data, and regulation. And the regulation, let's say, is the link element to those sub-areas because they are the main topics in the internal digital strategy. I mean, there are many, there are so many, but if we're thinking about that we don't have a priority, political priority approach in this digital connectivity, then we need to think about priorities. So I focus in those examples also because the paper is too short, so we cannot go through all those cross-sectoral areas. So I took the three countries, the three partners, and then I go through those three specific subsectors because it is different, for example, for data, especially with Japan, since they have signed the free flow data agreement. It's different with China now and the incorporation of the GDPR, some provisions in the new personal data, draft law, etc. However, I didn't have the time. I mean, it's done, but I'm so sorry, I didn't have the time to give all those data. And from there, I base recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
So your point is already taken into consideration. Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you a lot. Thanks a lot. Any other further additional comments or questions? Paul?
If I may, because I have a question to all of you, maybe, but in particular to Jung and Huang, because you were not satisfied probably with the number of indicators with this global value chains, and there are some possibilities to add some additional data, and it is possible, but I'm not sure if it's needed because of the length of article. If you advise me to do so, we can try to add it in order to have this fuller vision of or fuller evidence of these changes. So this is my question to you, Dr. Yun.
Okay, about 1.5 years ago, I wrote about the foreign value added. At the time, I used the methodologies presented by the Koopman. That was a 2014 methodology, and then decomposed foreign value added in exports into 6 different parts. For example, it's domestic value added, and then third country value added, and the domestic value added that returns homes, foreign value added, English cost, and double country terms, something like that. And the other complicated matrix calculation formula I had to follow. So my colleague used the R program, and it takes a long time, pretty much time consuming. And you didn't mention anything about the methodology. So I was just curious, how did you get these numbers? Because in terms of global production chains, global value chains, it has a meaning a lot. And then based on these figures and numbers, then who's who actually gets the most of the value added in trade? So the China is shows large numbers, big numbers, but still in terms of value added, they only get a small portion of the total from the exports. That's why I was asking.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yes. But it's possible to get some more data. I think the report of World Development Report, the last one, analyzes the global value chains, and there is a quite well developed methodology of getting data. So we are talking about the backward and forward connections and on the micro level. Okay, so yeah, but yeah, probably we'll think about how to complement the data in order not to base only on one indicator, so that it will be better. So thank you for.
Okay.
Yeah, colleagues, for more technical methodology problems, probably you can have a bilateral email exchanges, right, to clarify. Thanks a lot. I think we are almost 1.5 hours behind the schedule. And I think it's good so, because we had 6 papers, and discussing 6 papers within 1.5 hours, it's really impossible. So that I gave time as much as I could. So I could not manage the time as it's planned. But we have now the business meeting. Originally, we planned to have a small break, coffee break, but we could continue without break if you agree. Is it okay? Or if you need some coffee break, please pick up and come back. So let's.
Professor, I need around 5 minutes to load your PPT file. On
5 minutes? Half minute?
5 minutes, only 5 minutes.
5 minutes, do we need so long?
Okay, then hold on a second, so give me 1 minute.
Yeah. During the meeting, I learned from Sewon how to change my background. So how is my background?
Good looking.
It's northern Italian Trecime, Draizin and Trecime, the mountains, Dolomiti. And he's changing the background so quickly.
Sorry, I'm uploading